Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, another pioneering person within the radionic industry was Peter Kelly. Now, he's been around for many years, highly active with Hieronymus, which is basically what his machine is based on. He was an organizing member of the Psychotronic Association, apparently worked with Beck and Bearden, and has died 2004, which is interesting. It states that his untimely death. Well, I've just finished lectures on three different radionic people that have all died early. It doesn't say much for the actual technology that these people make, does it? And this is always the rub with anything alternative and metaphysical, is why hasn't this empowered you? Why aren't these people living for very long periods of time? Now, this seems to be the case with almost all of the radionic practitioners. Delaware. Drown, of course, there's claims that she was injected with something in prison. Albert Abrams, the inventor of this type of technology in general, called ERA, by him, died young as well. Do we go on and on and on here? Well, we're going to see a lot more of this with the recent craze for orgone equipment, which is drawing in all sorts of toxic garbage. So already a lot of people have gotten sick from those technologies, and we can expect the people that handle these things consistently will be finding out as well. Now, he stayed in the same place pretty much all his life, which is in Lakemont, Georgia, which was near Hieronymus. I believe he was out of Georgia as well. And as such, the pretty much spent his entire life there, from what I can see. What they like to say here is they don't call the instruments radionic instruments. They like to call them scalar and phase conjunction technology that is used by the radionic community. That's an interesting way of phrasing it. I'm assuming there's some legalese there. So apparently, Peter J. Kelly, the originator here, I thought it was longer than that, but apparently he designed, manufactured, and distributed variable capacitor scalar tuning devices. Which is very interesting, and he also made other instruments. They have the Beitar sound therapy unit and the mood ohmmeters. These put out little frequencies. They have an earth-based portable frequency unit, which is kind of nice, a portable 8 hertz unit, which I've owned for years. And his units are very well made, very nice units. They are really copies of the Hieronymus machines, which have been based on the use of capacitors, variable tunable capacitors. Now, these are very large, used in old instruments and old tuning radios, etc. And these are pretty expensive today to a degree. They're very long, and some people consider these to be the important factors of these kind of devices. And this is what Hieronymus used. Hieronymus also used tube amplifiers at one time. These things have been replaced, and do they have value? Well, they do have value, and I much more prefer the actual tube amplifiers and use those in my units. And I haven't converted over to variable capacitance units, capacitors, tuners, but is something that would be interesting to try. Most people do not consider that to be necessary. They use regular potentiometers, but they are structurally similar and structurally different, so that's important to understand. So he died unexpectedly in 2004. As I mentioned, another one bites the dust here. This is unbelievable that all these radionic practitioners, which you would think would be the paragon of health, are having all sorts of problems. Now, the bottom line is that they should be taking care of themselves better. But They probably also are doing a lot of work, and I know that Kelly did work when he was alive for all sorts of people and all sorts of medical problems, and took on their energy, also metaphysical problems. So you take on the energy, and a lot of times, and I think all practitioners, even myself do, I tend to not take the time I need to clear myself. So you got to work on yourself, make sure you're doing your protective, make sure you're clearing your energies. I've seen this from lots of healers, and I see them, all of them, tend to die young. Female psychics have terrible cancer problems because they're not releasing all that energy that they draw in. Most female psychics tend to feel the psychic reading and as such take in the energy of whomever they're reading, which is not good. Well, people are not well, they're disturbed, they have all sorts of problems, but they don't even combine well with your personal energy. So when you take these energies in, if you have to do it that way, make sure you cleanse yourself. Very important, especially if you're a practitioner for somebody like Peter J. Kelly was. So he makes these bank units, and while they are high quality units, and I believe they're priced fairly well. His base unit is $1,500. Past that goes, I think, to $2,800 and $3,900 for a professional unit with so many other things in it. So in this day and age, that's not a lot of money to get a piece of equipment you're going to use all the time, indefinitely. They're lifetime tools. So it's not something you're just going to throw away later. So this is something that certainly is worth the price, and they're well made. I have seen them, and I've worked with them a little bit. I don't have a Kelly instrument as of this time, but certainly the research is there. Certainly he knew what he was doing. But what you're getting is the old-fashioned Hieronymus type unit. And of course, he has rate books, he has everything. So it's a very complete service, particularly for those people looking for agricultural work, which is what he specialized in a bit. And it is a complete service, and the quality of the instruments is good. Now, ultimately, like all these things, what's the big question, Sam? I don't know, Tor. What's the big... Well, I know what the question is, Tor. Does it work? Well, that's a very good question. Well, I've used these metaphysically for years. I haven't used them because I'm so busy metaphysically on many things physical, which is a bad mistake for me. I mean, I should know more about that in that area. I certainly know how it's used now, and have used them, but not really consistently for that. But this is the case with all of these practitioners. It is illegal to treat anybody medically with this, at least unless you're a doctor in certain states. From what I understand, you can treat, in like New York State, you can treat somebody with a radionic machine as a doctor. The problem is that you're not going to do that as a doctor because you're going to be laughed at of the medical profession. And there could be ramifications or even charges up against you that you're doing something weird or dangerous. So you're not going to do that. There are some that may be, and I've heard this, that are treating people anyway without their knowing it, that they are putting the patients on machines. Probably is true. Now, when something is illegal like this, and even where it's legal in Britain, you have to work with a doctor in the UK, and most people don't do that. It's very difficult to find a doctor that works with any of the radionic people there. From some that I've talked to there, they are scared to death of the British Medical Association and authorities that will come after them if they make any kind of claims. So they basically do nothing. They can't make any claims, they can't say anything, they can't do anything else. They're very, very impotent. And of course, the British, who picked up on these machines after the legal problems in America in the 40s and 50s, have done absolutely nothing. There is a radionic association there that you have to go there like a regular college to learn it. Well, you know, I like that to a degree, but who's going to do that? It's not even an industry you can make much money on. Are you going to go and spend 3 years to learn radionics? Well, good luck. And so the point is that is not, they don't have any kind of correspondence courses. They don't have much of a facility in terms of museums. They had so many things over there, and you have to wonder what happened to it. because this was started by Delaware, the famous Delaware camera maker, machine maker, etc. Yet it's basically seems to be an organization run by a bunch of old, tired people with no new blood. So it's really sad that this is what it's come down to. They don't have instruments made for them. They have little to offer, and they don't have a library to go to or anything else, from what I understand, at least what's online. I really have never been overly motivated to join the organization because what do they have to offer? All of this is part of the big problem with radionics. So there's no information of how effective radionics is in the UK either, from what I can tell. I'll report back on that as I get more information. There seems to be a great confusion of the fact of what works and what doesn't work. The Radionic Association in the UK has a link to a virtual radionic machine, which I can tell you right now virtually doesn't work. So why are they doing that, and what kind of research have they had on that? Well, none of this really comes out. So we'll certainly see, and more has to be done there in terms of investigation. So getting back to Kelly here, there's really nothing from it. And of course, you can't report that I healed somebody. You can't do that. So, but you would think, even though a lot of people claim there's a problem with that because of big pharma, is the fact that you could think you could report with somebody or even your own personal experiments of how this affects agriculture. Yet there's nothing there. Matter of fact, he has an entire machine and course dedicated to that, Kelly does. Yet there isn't really any information on what this can do. Well, what is that all about? I mean, this lack of proof, even with agricultural situations, is just horrific from people that specialize in this and claim so much. What can it do? Well, there's also a Chinese manufacturer who's making an old type unit that claims you can kill insects by using these, which is a classic thing that can be done, or so it says to be done. Now, there are lots of books on this, people talking about it, the use of it, particularly when it was pretty popular in the 60s and 70s. And then it started to wane after that in terms of manufacturers stopped producing things, less information was made, and there isn't the same interest as there was in that, particularly those areas and those more expensive machines. But you would think that they could establish some sort of farming reality to show, hey, look at the additional growth here. Look at that, insects were killed. Now, everyone claims they can't do this because they come under harassment from the chemical industries, which could very well be. You've got to understand that the pharmaceutical pesticide industry is billions of dollars. Do they want somebody doing this? Well, we do know, it's been documented in certain books, stating that someone tried to do this, and the FCC came after them saying, well, you can't broadcast. This is a broadcasting, even though it didn't put out those kind of signals. And so that people who've tried to do this supposedly were harassed and got into trouble. Now, we just don't know because there doesn't seem to be enough information out there. There does seem to be a core group of people that are using this and shutting their mouth about it. But, you know, Monsanto and other people that make these chemicals by the trillions of tons a year and make millions, tens of millions of dollars from it, certainly don't want people going out there and learning how to do this. So if you go out and start giving people proof, does that put your head on the chopping block? Do you get harassments and other things? Well, probably so. But, you know, you're still selling this, and you lack any kind of credibility if you don't come up with some sort of studies, some sort of information that shows that these things have worked. Even very primitive or not well documented proof of how this works in fields and other things. So it's really sad that all of this is gone. But it's sad with everything. We have medical cures for everything that are not released because the pharmaceuticals want to profit from disease. This is an established fact. I mean, there's so many things that are out there that can heal you. It isn't even funny. I mean, there are hundreds of healing modalities that work and work well and cure people from minor things to horrible cancer. So there's plenty out there. It's the same with free energy and energy generation in general. It is completely suppressed, and we have ridiculous technologies. Now we're going over to batteries, which are dirty, toxic, and require an awful lot of work to charge them up and all the things that go with it. Yet we have something called hydrogen, which you can make your own hydrogen or even create your hydrogen in a car, so you'd never have to add to it, or you would just add a few cups of water. So you can have free energy through the use of hydrogen. We have all sorts of ways to generate energy. We have solar power. I mean, there are entire states in the United States that you could pretty much put solar panels on every square inch of it. It's sunny all the time. Arizona, California, New Mexico, it's loaded with nothing but sun. And if people just put them on their houses, you would have enough energy to take care of things. Why is that not happening? Well, because they want to charge you a fortune for electricity. So all of this is a fact, and the whole idea of hydrogen cars and hydrogen power, which could, if you can have a hydrogen car that runs an engine that you sit in to transport in, well, why couldn't you run a hydrogen generator to keep your lights, refrigerator, else? You certainly can. They're there. They're active. They have them today. Well, here is the nonsense again. So people need to understand that this is not a world where the better mousetrap makes you rich. This is a world where the better mousetrap puts a noose around your neck. They don't want this. There are people in control, and they don't want anything, new. They want the same old junk that they're vested in, just like Elon Musk and the Deutsches are building a giant battery factory in Germany. After Musk said you can't beat the Chinese for building things, well, apparently somebody has slapped his wrist with lots of money. So the whole idea is that we're going to put all that money into all of these toxic batteries that don't work very well, that have a limited lifespan, because nobody wants to make a perpetual motion machine. And again, it isn't just the factors of cars and automobiles, trains, etc. Well, all of these could be made into hydrogen-based, which we'd never have to draw energy. Because the fact is, when everybody starts plugging their cars in, there's going to be a huge load on the system, and probably something that is going to be very difficult to withstand. And of course, the power companies, who don't seem to ever upgrade their systems and never have enough going, plain and simple, are not investing to handle these things. But who cares anyway? It's stupid old technology. So what they've taken is a fancy name, a fancy container to put around you, otherwise known as a chassis and body of a car, to make it look like something, and using 120-year-old technology. Electric cars were the first kind of cars, people. So there's nothing new about it. It's an old technology, and batteries have come somewhat now, but not overly. It's still the same old jerky technology while everybody runs around saying, what a genius he is, an electric car. Yeah, and it's too bad you didn't shape it like a dinosaur, because that's about how old it is and how good it is. So, moving into that, people need to understand that. So I think that little minor lecture there is important. Let's get back to Peter Kelly and his instruments. Well, apparently, since he's died, he has a second generation taking over. So, which is nice. Actually, his family has taken over making the instruments and carrying on the work of their father, which I think is wonderful. This is the problem with these boutique-type industries. When the people are gone, nobody picks it up. There's no information there. There's nothing there in general. So, it's really sad. So when they die, everybody dies in terms of the technology is lost. And it's happened with Hieronymus. It's happened with all the other people. There's nothing there. Nobody has any information on them. There's no records kept, etc. These are businesses, and like most businesses that go out of business, nobody's there to pick it up. It's really sad. So it is good that his family has picked this up. So apparently they're making the machines. I'm assuming they've kept the quality up. They offer all sorts of things. So it is something that if you're interested in this type of more agricultural-based technologies, or if you like some of their Betar sound therapy units or their Mutomatics, as I said, those are nice 8 hertz generator. You can go to Kelly Research Technologies. Kelly, Kelly, and get the information. Now, here's the problem, though. Here's the bitter pill at the end of the sweet, sweet dream. And since I followed Kelly and had subscribed to his actually puts out a magazine or a newsletter, and I was subscribing to it for many years. I think they're still publishing it, and you can get back copies of it if you desire. Never found that very interesting either, but he did have rates in every newsletter, which you may find interesting. So there were always little bits for it. But here's what Kelly did. Now, I knew people that went to him and so forth, so I knew he took on different types of cases, even what we would call metaphysical cases. But one thing he did in his magazines, and of course I'm sure it's there for prosperity, is the fact that he asked in one of his newsletters for money for medical treatments for his wife, who apparently was diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, certainly this is terrible, but here's a guy who uses machines, or has been. Hieronymus was, and all of these machines are notorious for treating people with illnesses, yet he needed money to go get regular treatments. What? Holy cow, Batman. Have the Joker got to us? I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is horrific. So, does his technology work? Does he have documentation? Well, no. He certainly doesn't have documentation. Does it work? I don't know. Are farmers using it and being able to harvest their crops? I don't know, but I don't know why a lot more aren't, because it would save you a bunch of money. You know, a lousy $4,000 is not much money to get yourself an entire agricultural unit. Not much money. So, but that's the sad story of Peter J. Kelly, who also, which I don't know what he died in, of, they don't state here. I'm assuming it was probably, since it was sudden, usually it's a heart attack. The same thing happened with Copeland, Copen, the famous British manufacturer, very pretty instruments, but the guts weren't much to speak about. But very pretty instruments by Bruce Copen, who built an entire line of these, started to get into electronic ones, and died suddenly. We can add him to the list. Holy mackerel. I think I'm taking my units and trashing them. Well, I'll tell you one thing, people. I'm already older than all these people, and I haven't had any problems. Well, I've had problems, and I've cured most of that, and best of my health now that I get older for some bizarre reason. But here we go again. Now that's 4 people. Well, there's actually more than that. All of the ones that I can think of have died young. Tansley is another famous radionic writer, died of cancer in his 50s. Jeez, it gets worse and worse. I mean, this is the problem with this technology, but I think there's an important lesson to be learned here, and that I believe there's a radiation that if you're treating people or other things with these machines, that you have to be a little more careful. You have to shield yourself. You have to protect yourself. And most likely, it's best to have a machine on yourself constantly, 24/7, clearing and protecting yourself out. But as usual, it's like the old saying, the shoemaker's kids don't have shoes. Well, I think that's true. And I've seen this, as I've mentioned at the opening of this, many different healers and others that never clear themselves properly. This is sad. Very, very sad. As people get focused on other things and don't focus on themselves, and for some bizarre reason think that they are protected when they are not. So, this is an interesting case as well, and it's unfortunate that we have another interesting person who has passed away at a young age when he should have been using technologies to keep himself alive longer. Now, as I mentioned, the inventor of this type of technology, Dr. Albert Abrams, died young as well. Some sort of flu came by and killed him. I believe he was 58 or in his early 60s. He certainly wasn't young, but he wasn't very old. The point is, why didn't his radionic machines keep him alive with this kind of a condition? Certainly, this was not a serious condition in terms of, in one aspect, meaning he didn't waste away of cancer. But the point is that here he was hit by a serious flu, and he couldn't handle it with his technology that was supposed to be curing most of the country. These kind of situations really make you scratch your head and have to wonder. This technology is valid. I've studied it for over 45 years now. It works on certain levels with certain things. Unfortunately, there's never been enough research to put all these together to figure out, does it work on what and where, particularly when it comes to physical problems, because it's illegal to do that. Of course, it probably could be done in some state where it is legal, and their documentation, but it's very unlikely you're going to get a doctor to stick its neck out in these kind of areas. You will become the target for everybody and could jeopardize your entire career in life. And this is how they do it. The point is, they don't have to kill you, they just take your living away from you. So if you can't function as a doctor, well, what do you do? And they will even engineer the fact that you can't get a job anywhere else, even in a burger joint. That's how it works. So you've got to understand that fully. So, fascinating case here. This is one person who is, of course, the organization is still going, but the founder is dead. Until next time.